So we spent the first part of the day looking at the managing strategy, which in many ways is around, starting with the self lens. What is it that I can do? What's possible for me, really, as an individual to reach out for? And as we turn towards our second strategy, which we've called acknowledging or accepting, as I was thinking about that, I came across a word or a sentence from John O'Donoghue, the Irish poet, and I'm just going to read it out to you here. He says, "We are so busy managing our lives so as to cover over this great mystery we are all involved in." So yes, managing is an act of will, but there's also an act, I guess, of grace to stay open to the mystery of what comes our way. And this is really what we're calling acknowledging or accepting as a change strategy. And I think Sally mentioned it in terms of staying open to the actual. The acknowledging strategy starts from a very different place, from a place of radically accepting that some things are actually outside of my sphere of influence. And just notice, even saying that, how this lands with you all. How easy is it for you to go to with that notion? And how much, perhaps, maybe a bit like me, some of you are resistant to it. Perhaps, even an impulse to want to contradict it. If you do, you're not alone, really. As human beings, I think the awareness of ourselves, and by that I mean the kind of the development of our self-consciousness, has gifted us with many things, but mostly with a sense that we can actually change the world around us. We can influence our fate. And some have even gone even further, a point of view that I don't really abide by, but that we can actually shape the world physically around us by our thoughts. So our will is great, of course, but I think it's also limited. And one area which comes, which has been on my mind a lot in this pandemic, I think, is how do I sit, for example, with the anxiety in my clients, whether in a clinical setting or on a coaching with my coachees. There are many techniques that try to manage anxiety through cognition, all the CBT approaches. And so if I think differently, distract myself, positive relaxation, all the stuff we've been talking about in the first part, I won't be anxious anymore. And this, of course, can work in the short term, but also tends to backfire. There's a tremendous amount of research, data now on thought suppression that, shows, that when we consciously try to block something out, it just occurs even more frequently. I mean, even if I said to you, do not think of pink elephants, so the mind immediately becomes preoccupied with, pink elephants. So another often more helpful approach to things we struggle with is turning towards the anxiety, accepting it, and paradoxically, I guess, increasing our ability to feel it and maybe give us a different choice. And often this is also been referred to as a more mindful kind of approach. In Gestalt, we speak of staying with awareness, with what is, with sensing ourselves and the field. And for those of you that are familiar, we call this our paradoxical theory of change. And it teaches us that in order to change, really, we just need to be even more of who we are in that present, in that moment. So we need to increase awareness of ourselves, of the present moment, be more accepting of all that comes to us, whether it's our emotions, our life events. And actually, it's a tremendously difficult thing to do, but also a very powerful change strategy. And I guess what's powerful is that we're not spending so much energy invested in also rejecting what is. And just notice how much, there is energy in not accepting.